I never imagined my closest friend of 12 years would turn out to be my worst nightmare. We met when I was 15, right after my family moved to Seattle following my parents' messy separation. Being the new kid is never easy, but she made it bearable. She was the first person to welcome me at West Ridge High, showing me around and introducing me to her circle of friends. Our bond grew stronger through those teenage years. We joined the drama club together, spent weekends at the local mall, and even got our first summer jobs at the same frozen yogurt place. It wasn't just about having fun, though. She was there during the darkest times, too. When my older sister went through her mental health crisis during our senior year, my friend helped me research treatment centers and even contributed some of her savings to help with the medical bills. The natural progression took us to the same university, though for different reasons. I chose State University for its creative communications program, while she was drawn to their prestigious business school. We shared a tiny dorm room for 4 years, living on instant noodles and dreams of making it big in the corporate world. After graduation, she landed an entry-level position at Digitech Solutions, a growing software company downtown. 2 weeks later, thanks to her recommendation, I joined their marketing department. Everything seemed perfect. We were building our careers together, just like we'd planned during those late-night dorm room conversations. The first few years at Digitech were exactly what we'd hoped for. Though we worked in different departments, we kept our tradition of Friday movie nights alive, complete with takeout and sharing stories about our week. She climbed the corporate ladder quickly, moving from junior analyst to team lead within 4 years. I was doing well too, progressing from marketing associate to senior specialist. Then came the change that would unravel everything. About 8 months ago, our marketing director, Mr. Peterson, suddenly retired due to health issues. Instead of promoting someone from within our team, upper management appointed my friend as our new director. She would be directly supervising me and 6 other team members. Initially, I was thrilled for her. During her first team meeting, she spoke about revolutionary changes and fresh perspectives. But something felt off in the way she looked at me while discussing these changes. It was a look I'd never seen before, calculating, almost predatory. The transformation in her behavior was subtle at first. During our second week under her leadership, she completely dismantled a major campaign I'd been developing for months. The same one she'd enthusiastically helped me brainstorm during our movie nights. She questioned every decision in front of the entire team, suggesting I might not be capable of handling significant projects. Things deteriorated rapidly after that. She began micromanaging my work exclusively, demanding updates every hour while other team members worked independently. In meetings, she would make pointed comments about people who got their positions through connections rather than merit, always staring directly at me. When I tried discussing this privately, reminding her of our friendship, and asking if I'd somehow offended her, she dismissed my concerns with a laugh, saying I needed to learn to separate personal relationships from professional ones. The irony of this statement would become painfully clear later. The situation became unbearable when she started using my personal information against me. During a team lunch, she casually mentioned my failed relationship with someone from the IT department, implying that my poor judgment in personal matters might be affecting my work decisions. She even brought up my sister's mental health struggles during a project reliability meeting, suggesting that instability ran in my family. My performance began suffering as I constantly walked on eggshells. Other team members started avoiding me, not out of dislike, but to stay clear of the obvious tension. I began documenting everything, saving emails, recording meetings with everyone's knowledge as per company policy, and keeping detailed notes of all inappropriate comments. The breaking point came during my quarterly review. Despite meeting or exceeding all my targets, she gave me the lowest possible performance rating. When I asked for specific examples of my shortcomings, she cited my negative attitude and claimed my personal issues were interfering with my ability to handle responsibility. That evening, I spent hours organizing all the evidence I'd collected, inappropriate emails, meeting recordings with unprofessional comments, and written complaints from other team members who'd privately expressed concerns about her behavior. The next morning, I took everything to HR and filed a formal complaint. The HR investigation lasted 2 weeks, during which they uncovered more than I'd expected. They found evidence of her manipulating project assignments, favoring those who sided with her while dumping impossible deadlines on anyone who questioned her decisions. They also discovered she had been altering performance metrics to make certain team members look bad. The investigation ended with her termination for professional misconduct and creating a hostile work environment. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong, it was just the beginning. She started a smear campaign on LinkedIn, posting cryptic messages about backstabbing friends and professional jealousy. She contacted our old college friends, spinning a story about how I'd orchestrated her downfall out of envy. Some believed her, saying I should have handled things privately instead of destroying her career. Even my mom called to say I'd gone too far and should have just requested a transfer. But things got much worse. Using her still active work email, she reached out to several of our major clients. She twisted every minor mistake I'd ever made into major failures, presenting old draft versions of campaigns as final work to make me look incompetent. Within a week, 4 clients pulled out of ongoing projects, including Maxi Corp, a $400,000 account I'd managed for 3 years. Then came the recordings. One Friday evening, I received an email from her with an audio attachment. My hands shook as I played it. It was my voice from 2 years ago during one of our wine nights, drunkenly mocking Mr. Peterson's management style and his slight stutter. I felt sick listening to it. He had always been kind to me, and I was just being mean that night. More emails followed, each containing different recordings. She had been secretly recording our conversations for years, long before becoming my boss. She had recordings of me complaining about coworkers, criticizing company policies, and discussing confidential information she had shared with me. The worst was a recording from 3 years ago where I was excitedly discussing a potential company merger she had told me about. At the time, I thought it was just office gossip, but discussing such information could be seen as insider trading. She sent her demands via text. Write an email to HR and the executive team confessing that I had fabricated the harassment claims out of jealousy. Admit that I had manipulated other team members into complaining about her. Help her get her job back. If I refused, she would send all the recordings to the company's leadership. The stress was unbearable. I developed anxiety attacks, lost weight, and couldn't sleep. My work started suffering again, and my new manager put me on a performance improvement plan. When I consulted a lawyer about the recordings, he said we could potentially fight it since most were made without my consent, but it would be a lengthy and expensive process. Even if we won, the damage to my reputation would be irreversible once the recordings were public. Our college friends turned against me completely after she played them edited recordings of private conversations. My closest college friend, Sarah, called me crying because she heard a recording where I seemingly criticized her wedding. In reality, I had been complaining about her wedding planner, but the recording was cleverly edited to sound like I was attacking Sarah. I felt trapped in a nightmare where every private word I'd ever spoken could be used as a weapon. The realization that she must have been planning this for years, deliberately getting me to say things she could use against me later, made me physically ill. The betrayal was so deep, so calculated, that I struggled to comprehend it. The company's HR department knew about the situation, but couldn't do much about recordings made outside work. They offered me paid leave to deal with the stress, but I was afraid to step away when my position already felt shaky. Just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, I received an unexpected email from Megan, a former senior project manager who had left the company 3 months before my friend became our boss. Her message would change everything. Megan's email revealed something shocking. My friend had used the same tactics against her. She had recordings of Megan discussing her difficult divorce and had threatened to send them to her ex-husband's lawyer during their custody battle. Rather than risk losing her kids, Megan had quietly resigned. But Megan hadn't been idle since leaving. She'd been gathering evidence, and when my friend contacted her recently, trying to blackmail her into making false harassment claims against me, Megan was ready. She recorded everything legal in our state with one-party consent. She got my friend to admit in writing that she'd been secretly recording employees for years as part of her strategy to climb the corporate ladder. When Megan brought this evidence to Digitech's legal team, they launched a full investigation. What they found was staggering. My friend had multiple storage devices filled with recordings, screenshots, and photos taken without people's knowledge. She had detailed files on almost everyone in the company, documenting any conversation that could potentially be used as leverage. But it got worse. She hadn't just been collecting this information for job security, she'd been selling it to our competitors. She had recordings of confidential board meetings she wasn't even supposed to attend, executive discussions about mergers, private HR conversations about salaries, and client meetings where proprietary information was shared. The scale of her deception was mind-blowing. She'd been building this collection since her first day at the company, deliberately getting people to open up by sharing fake personal stories of her own. Everything had been calculated, even our friendship. All those wine nights, all those heart-to-heart conversations, they were just opportunities for her to gather ammunition. The investigation revealed she had caused Mr. Peterson's retirement too. She'd systematically sabotaged his projects and used her recordings to make him look incompetent. The stress had triggered his heart condition. When he learned about this during the investigation, the company offered him a substantial settlement. The legal consequences were massive. She faced criminal charges for corporate espionage, multiple civil lawsuits from the company and employees, and legal action from clients whose confidential information she'd leaked. The district attorney discovered she'd even installed hidden recording devices in conference rooms. They found a spreadsheet where she tracked everyone's personal information, weaknesses, and potential vulnerabilities. More disturbing details emerged when her sister reached out to me. Apparently, she'd been manipulating her own family for years, blackmailing her parents with family secrets for money. Her sister shared stories going back to high school, making me realize the person I thought was my best friend had never really existed. Looking back, I can see all the warning signs I missed. How she always seemed to know everyone's secrets, how people who crossed her mysteriously ended up leaving the company or facing personal problems, how she always came out on top in any conflict. The final verdict came a year after I first reported her to HR. She pleaded guilty to multiple charges including corporate espionage, illegal surveillance, and extortion. She received an 18-month federal prison sentence, 3 years of probation, and had to pay over $900,000 in fines and restitution. I've since moved to a new company with better opportunities. While Digitech was supportive, too many places and people there reminded me of what happened. Recently, she tried reaching out through her sister, sending a long letter from prison about how therapy has changed her and how she wants to make amends. I read it once and shredded it. Some bridges should stay burned. Some apologies don't deserve acceptance. This experience changed how I approach both professional and personal relationships. I'm more careful about maintaining boundaries, but I've also learned that standing up for yourself is always the right choice, even when it's terrifying. I still occasionally get anxious about being recorded or manipulated, but I'm working through it. My new company has a strict no-recording policy and excellent security measures, which helps me feel safe. I've made some genuine new friendships, though it took time to learn to trust people again. Megan and I have stayed in touch, bonding over our shared experience. Sometimes we meet for coffee and talk about how surreal it all seems now, like a plot from a thriller movie rather than our real lives. Last week, I ran into Sarah at a coffee shop. After learning the full story and hearing the unedited recordings, she apologized for believing the lies. We're slowly rebuilding our friendship, more mature and wiser about how precious genuine connections are. The truth is, while this experience was traumatic, it taught me valuable lessons about trust, courage, and self-worth. Sometimes the people who seem closest to us can be the ones wearing the most convincing masks. But discovering someone's true nature, no matter how painful, is better than living in a carefully constructed lie. As I write this from my new office, overlooking a different city skyline, I feel at peace with everything that happened. The best revenge isn't plotting or hatred, it's moving forward and being happy. And that's exactly what I'm doing.